Okay, I gotta know what's a drop bear. Good day, mate. How's everybody doing? Welcome, gatekeepers, one and all. Hell of an intro. I had fun doing that one for you. The other one, the Aussie one. Uh, if you saw it last night, I apologize, but it gets you in the mood. We're going down under tonight, and we have a special guest, and we're going to bring him on in here. He did such a good job last night. Get in here, AJK. How you doing?
Hey,
What's up, Aaron? You doing well?
yeah, thanks.
Good, good, good. So, are you ready to go to Australia? Have a little
Yeah,
shrimp on the Barbie?
I never been there.
Oh, me
It'd be
either.
a great place to go.
Right, right. Now, I don't know. I think we have a few people that listen from there. I think like five or six off the top of my head that I know. And now it's what, like next week there or something? Time wise, what is it? Like they're ahead, right? Just like New Zealand, of course.
I, I think
What,
it's
12
Tuesday.
hours? Is it Tuesday? Is it Tuesday? But that seems so they're in from the future basically. So either way, they have some incredible hauntings. We saw that last night, and we were watching this great documentary done in 1980s and made for TV. But I think it's pretty good. I absolutely love the doctor. I should give that intro again. What do you want to say about it, Aaron? While I look this up, what we saw last night.
I think they should burn that place to the ground. that,
Man, I'm
because
telling you.
that's a bad place.
Oh my goodness. My goodness. Also there was you and I were talking about now Aaron and I send emails back and forth. We're also talking about for future episode the Brownsville are they calling it the Brownsville demon, do you think? Because it's the road is
Yeah,
Brownsville.
isn't it? Is it Brownsville Street or Brownsville Road? It's in
Road?
Pennsylvania, right?
Yeah, yeah. Not far from Scranton, and it's now it's a bed and breakfast. But Bob, the dad, senior Kramer, some say Cram, it's Kramer. So he is his son is Junior. So when we start talking about it, we're going to have to call Junior, whatever, back and forth because they both are prominent figures throughout this story. But he says that he's opened it as a bed and breakfast. He's got the house clean now, so you can't come in. No paranormal groups, no Ouija boards. We don't want anything stirred up again. He just made it a bed and breakfast. So I don't know. I think that's kind of rolling the dice a little bit. What do you think?
Um, I think it's okay, at least from an ethics standpoint.
Yeah.
He's ethically solid. In it's not like he's got the Lindsay Borden house where where he he keeps it, or the Myrtle Plantation, where they want that stuff
Right,
to
right,
happen
right.
because it they want the guests to experience something.
Right,
But
right.
like we said, it's kind of unethical. It's almost like they have like Steve calls it, a trick pony.
Yes, yes. And it's
So at least
it's
from an ethical point of view, he's doing the right thing.
yeah. Well, the thing is that if you think about how people are and they want to get in there and a young couple playing the right part could go in there and whip a Ouija board out of their suitcase. You know what I mean? It's just it's the reputation is so strong for that house that the draw for it would be paranormal. I don't think it's going to be the opposite of we're just going to Scranton to have a nice, weekend and we're going to stay in this house. Do you see what I mean? I mean, I don't know what the tourism there, where the house is, but the thing is you can't, unless you've got cameras and you've got eyes on 24/7, you're not going to stop somebody who has the intent to go in there and conjure something up again, for their own whatever. whether it be out of fun, whether it be out of evil doing or anything else. I just think the human condition is, it just seems funny to me. Somebody who wants to keep the lid on something would open it wide open like that and think that he could keep a handle. But it would be a Marine major that would think that they could do that. You know, I mean,
Oh, I
no
think in the
offense to officers, but you know what I'm saying.
no, he was the army. He was the army military intelligence officer.
Oh, was he Army? Well,
Uh
either
huh.
way, he was an officer. So he was an officer. I stand corrected. But the point is he's got that officer mentality where, I know if I lay the ground rules down and I'm stern about it, that, it's going to be followed. But how would you know? How would you know if somebody 3 o'clock in the morning isn't quietly sitting on their bed, summoning demons? How are you going to know?
Or they're
And then
bringing them
it's,
in.
yeah,
They're attached,
either way,
and that
right?
place just adds gasoline to the fire.
Absolutely. And we start digging on this. I definitely want to know your thoughts, how it may have, because I'm doing the same thing. I'm looking at it from the vantage point of when I was small, lived in a haunted farmhouse. Of course, I wouldn't say it was on any level that, his story is, of course. And I don't know your full story, so I can't say that. But any time like that, when you're going, yeah, 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 that happened. That was creepy. I mean, it could be something as small as eating your cereal before you're getting on the school bus for school and the basement door keeps opening by itself, or, a drawer, that you might get so used to it being a family that's there that you just mindlessly close the drawer as you walk by like it's no big deal, which is the way this guy describes how everything started with that family, right? Everything is so subtle, you know. And like the way you said your description last night about looking out your bedroom door into the kitchen and you see this thing that's running around the soup, casserole dish or whatever on top of the
Hmm.
refrigerator.
Yeah,
And
the soup terrain.
yeah, and I knew exactly what you meant by that, but a lot of people don't, probably don't have those as much anymore. But that sounds so, so minuscule. But when it happens, especially now in the times where we're so desensitized to things, look at how the times that we've been, it used to be a little subtle scare was enough to, make you jump in your seat watching something on TV. And now it's, we're watching heads blowing up 24/7, and zombies or whatever. But when it happens to you, it's so profound and it means a whole lot more in that moment, because it's not just the basement door creaking open or the like a silverware drawer sliding open on its own or whatever it may be, or the like we saw last night, that flour canister lifting up and floating across the kitchen and then just smashing into the fireplace. It sounds so easy to say, but when it happens to you, it's it it's etched in your mind forever. You feel the feelings in that room around you. Obviously, the atmosphere changes usually. I don't know of any instances where it doesn't. So, all of those feelings together, and of course, the fear of the unknown. I mean, it's so compounded when you're the one having the experience. You see what I'm saying? You know,
Yeah, and the other thing, oh, it's opposite. Like it was. I'm trying to make a. It was
it's
contorted
hard.
like,
It's hard.
yeah, against the. It was there was the other thing that was standing against the fridge, and it was as tall as the refrigerator,
Uh huh.
and it was kind of like contorted, kind of strange. It wasn't standing straight up and down. It
Uh
was kind
huh.
of leaning, like
Okay.
it was leaning, but to me, like I said, as at my age, the refrigerator was tall. Because
Right.
I was like 7 or 8. I
Yeah.
think, and so as far as I'm concerned, like I couldn't reach the top of the refrigerator or like on the
Hmm.
top shelf in the back. So unless I
Right.
got in the chair or something like that. So I mean, it was that was So I thought that was like the tallest thing I'd ever seen
Hmm. Hmm. But
as
again,
far
that's
as.
it's so profound and etched on your childhood. You know what I'm saying? So the house that this Brownsville demon and this group of kids that grew up here and fighting this thing continuously. I mean, as the years went on, um, it's when we tell the story, that's what I'd like to do. Come on, and we tell how it happened. I told a little bit about last night, just the that string being wrapped around, but it's that moment in time when you realize, even if you shut the door and you open it again, it's going to be already done.
Mhm.
That's the moment where the adrenaline just shoots through you. Like when you stop a car and a car stops in front of you real fast, you jam on the brake, that feeling that jumps through you, that's when it hits. And you were saying that last night when you're looking out of the bedroom door, and then after that you slept with your door shut, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
like forever.
Yeah, but see,
Yeah.
it,
Now,
that just put an exclamation point on everything, because like I said, it etched on your childhood for life. It's incredible. Little things. Little things are as important as the big stuff. We get used to hearing a lot of the big stuff. The house, exploded, and the ground opened up and it ate the house, and the graveyard and everything else. We've gotten such a big CGI presence in movies and television and things like that, that we forget again that the little stuff, the little subtle things, sometimes are the most spooky. You know, it's that creepy thing. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Hmm.
like I remember. I think this always kind of amazes me because back in the 1980s, people started getting cable TV, right?
Hmm.
And so without the internet, people knew to go to that little box outside their house and pull the filter out,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. They
and
knew.
you
Just took a second.
and
Took one guy in the neighborhood. I know a guy.
isn't it funny? It's like um where did they like how did they know? It's word of mouth was incredible back then,
Yeah,
and we didn't have the internet or nothing. And
nothing.
so like one of the first movies on cable TV I got to watch was Indiana Jones, The Raiders of the Lost Ark, which was
Really?
I was
That was
like,
like
"Oh,
the one of
wow,
the
this is
first.
great." And then
That's so funny you remember that, dude, because I remember the first one I saw was somebody in the factory. I was working at frequency engineering in New Jersey. We made the slides and things for the military, like the 25-man rafts and stuff like that, the slides that come out of the
mhm.
planes and all that. We built those. So, horrible job. But anyway, somebody had cable and they invited everybody over to watch The Howling. That's how long ago, on Showtime. She had Showtime. It was a big deal. And we all
Yeah.
got together and saw The Howling. That's how long ago it was for me.
And then I remember I think the Poltergeist movie came out not too
Mm,
it was kind of around that
yep.
same kind of era
Mhm.
and so basically this is at my dad's and I would go visit my dad on the weekends and he saw that that movie was on and he goes I really don't want you watching this. I'm like, yeah, I lived this and
Yeah, yeah,
it
yeah,
wasn't as it wasn't
yeah.
as bad. And I tell you I listened to that podcast that you sent me today.
Oh,
Um
did you? Did you listen? It
yeah,
wasn't
it
is
was
was that not so well done? So
yeah.
well done. The production. We're talking about a podcast. If you guys have bear with me just a moment, Aaron. Um it's called Unsolved Mysteries Podcast. It's on Spotify. It only has 2 seasons. I was absolutely devastated to hear it wasn't going to come back on again. So well done. The quality, the production on this podcast is amazing. All right, go ahead. What did you think?
Oh,
Without giving the
as
story away.
yeah, and it reminded me that I used to have scratches too. I would get scratches too.
I
But
thought it
that
would
was like
remind you.
the I think them things just picked on me. I don't think it bothered anybody else because
It
nobody
could
else
have.
ever saw anything.
It could have. So maybe in some ways, isn't that weird? Because when I heard it, we hadn't done this yet. And then when I had you on last night and I was talking about the Brownsville with you, that's what I heard in my head. He's going to hear it. He's going to listen to it. I I know it's weird, but it
Hmm.
happens. So he's going to listen to it. He's going to hear it. He's going to have certain things that, parallel his experiences or remind him of some. And it happened to me when I was listening to it. I was reminded of some things that, because I was much
Hmm.
younger than you. I was so little when we left there. So it would be almost incredible. It's incredible I can remember anything. But the things that happened were so profound. I think it was, like I said, it was etched on my childhood forever, and there for my life. So go ahead. You were talking about how you remembered. Were Do you see how the oldest son, was kind of Junior, I guess it was Bob
Yeah.
Junior, was anything
They,
similar?
oh, um, I don't. I don't think it happened to me as bad as it did to him, and I never got into that the goth thing. And then
Mhm,
I don't want to. I guess I don't want to say this, but I did have thoughts of.
mhm.
Do y'all catch my drift?
Yeah,
I don't want to.
yeah,
I don't want to say it on there.
on the
So
YouTubes, yeah.
yeah,
But see, that's what it does, and it's so odd because, again, for, all you investigators out there, make sure you put this in the book, write it down, because when you go and the minute people start saying that they might have thoughts like that, it doesn't necessarily have to be an entity, a negative entity. It could just be a regular, I want to say household ghost. Does that make sense? A regular, you know, human being that also had that depressed feeling. Again, the main thing we don't want to do is jump to conclusions, because remember Ryan. I will always say, remember Ryan. He was the one that had. Were you here that night we watched that, Aaron? It was the young man who, it started gradually and it went through where everybody thought it was a demonic force, and it turned out just to be an angry old man that had passed and latched onto him. And it really threw us all for a loop, because it was, wow, what a case. And that taught everybody, don't, you can't just put it in a category so quickly. You have to really sort it out. That was amazing. So that's pretty cool that you listen to that. And it kind of, that's why I wanted to do this with you, because I thought it would definitely give several different vantage points on this story. I think that's an interesting angle to take it, to present it to the chat and everything. So what do you think? It's a hell of a story. I mean, literally, don't you think?
yeah, and I have kind of like mixed feelings about uh it. It on the bad side, it's kind of like why did he drag his family through this? And then, but on the good side though, it's good versus evil,
Yes, it's a
and
hell of a
he's
message.
and you don't, and it was what's the saying is evil will prevail if we don't, you know
Yeah.
if good men don't
Yeah,
do nothing, so
Edmund Burke, yeah, yeah. I mean,
you
and
know
that's 100%. The only thing necessary for evil to exist is for good man to stand by and do nothing. So that's absolutely, absolutely the message. And I thought, when I heard it, I thought, as horrible as this story is, and I mean, gosh, we've never shied away from that here on this channel, or any of us. If we can learn from it, then it's worth going in and coming out through the other side, because we always go in and out together, right, guys? So I think it's a great idea for Aaron and I to work on this. Take all the time you need. Listen, I just threw this in your lap. So, I don't care if it's a couple months. You know what I'm saying? No, really, I know you're a busy guy. You got a family and everything else. So take it in your own pace, and jot down a couple things, and I'll get some information, some pictures and whatever, and we'll put together a nice show for everybody, and we'll come on and we'll talk about it, because I think it's worth doing. What do you think, chat? Sounds like a good idea, right? You want to do the
yeah, let's do a
Brownsville?
show. Let's do a
Yeah,
show about
let's
that,
do a whole
because I
show.
think that's better than the Animeville one.
I do too. I do too. I'm right there with you. And it's so important in these times that we're in. And both of us coming back, coming at this as soldiers, you know what I mean? And seeing the whole thing. We know how you've got to, let me put it to you this way. When you felt when you walked in induction. And you're all like, man, this is wild. Look at, I look at I see the boots, and then we're going to do this. We're getting our underwear, and we're getting a haircut. We're getting it, and you got
Hmm.
that, you know, it's confused. It's excitement. There's a lot of feelings involved. But by the time you're about halfway through basic training, you realize, well, if you didn't know going in, that they're breaking you down and building you back up again, and at the same time showing you what you're made of and pushing you further than you ever thought you could go. And if you think about it, this story is like that. And it's also like people in the world right now dealing with everything that's going on, the chaos, the storm. Okay, let's just put it that way. And however it affects you and however you get your information on it, it's like being in a tornado with all those things flying around, this information and more bad news and more ridiculous stuff here and more craziness here. And oh my God, what's this? You know, and that's kind of how we've been living for a couple of years. So it's whether you're talking about the paranormal or real life or going through the military training you to get broke down so you can get built back up so you can be a warrior. That's, I think, taking you guys through this story will actually, if it hasn't been embedded in you yet, the whole good versus evil, spiritual warfare, stand your ground, um is going to absolutely bring that idea home with this story, don't you think, Aaron?
Yeah, yeah. He did not want to relinquish his house.
And
He was like, "It's my." He was like, "This is my house.
yeah, yeah,
You get out." That was kind of neat.
yeah, 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 yeah. And like you said, thought you put it very well. The way, you wonder what the heck are you doing? You got 4 or 5 kids, and I was just listening to him again today in a more recent interview from like a year ago. And he's talking about the bed and breakfast and everything else. That's why I brought up the whole thing about you can't bring Ouija boards and no paranormal groups and stuff like that. And I'm thinking, dude, how do you know? It's like I know people if they want to climb a fence and barbed wire and concertina wire on the top, they're going to tunnel under. They're going to do whatever they got to do because there's some people who think that that would be like the most awesome place to be to do whatever. You
Yeah,
know what
I
I
mean,
mean?
yeah, it may turn into a mecca like the Lindsay Borden house or the um,
Yeah.
Myrtle Plantation in Louisiana. And what's what were those other people in New Orleans? What was it? Was that La LaRue? Was that their
Oh,
name?
oh gosh, see, that one just makes me nauseous. The
Yeah. Oh,
stuff that
yeah.
she
She
did,
was
and
like
she
the
got away, and she got away.
yeah.
Oh, it
They
burns
can't
me.
keep a cleaning person. They'll hire a cleaning person, and about after 3 days, they're like, I'm out.
I don't blame them.
Yeah,
I wouldn't go
because
anywhere near that house. There's places
and,
I won't go anywhere near, and that's one of them.
and that's during the day.
I know, I know. It's just, yeah. That's the thing. I was with him. I was right with him. I mean, I had to kind of like what. And a couple times I'm like, dude, what are you saying? What are you thinking here? Okay. And I'm listening to him. I'm trying to give him, and I get it. I totally get it. And I got nothing but mad props for him, and the family because he didn't do it alone. But the um the bed and breakfast, that's the one. It's like you should have just kept the lid. You got the lid on, just keep the lid on it, you know. And now you're inviting more. I don't know. It's like you don't know what you're letting in. I mean, I used to do I want to say house cleaning, but spiritual cleaning for a business. Now the business was a metaphysical, so it had everything from tie-dyed whatever to glass pipes, the incense, the jewelry, the gemstones, the tapestries, typical place like this, right? And they sold marijuana wasn't legal there, so they had like tobacco products, like that, paraphernalia and stuff like that, incense burners. So I got called in. I think I told this story before. But anyway, I got called in and I don't charge. I just say, just, if you want to give me a pack of cigarettes or something, because you can trade tobaccos. I said, as long as it's American spirit, because it can't have chemicals. So whatever. So anyway, I don't charge. So they gift that. and they gifted some sage, and I traded them some sweetgrass and some sage. So we did everything good. And I walking in, and we went through the whole thing of, what do you have a faith base? Where's your where you know where do you what do you call your light? I have all different little things, trying to bring them into it, because if you don't incorporate what they believe, their light source into this, it's not gonna, it's because it's maintenance. So we go walking around, whatever. I had to constantly go back there, because here's the thing. They had a couple of employees working for them that were kind of, let's just say their windshield had a lot of cracks in it. Okay. They were very
Mhm.
influenceable, very, very easy to push on. And everybody that came in that door wasn't all light and love. Do you see what I'm saying? They're in there. They're also selling things to cast negative spells and things like that. And some things you can use either or. But these were straight up, the only thing you could use it for would be negative, or black magic or whatever. And I said, look, unless you keep this constant, you don't, everybody who walks in here brings whatever they're carrying with them. And these people are getting hit, and for a couple of days they'll be good, and the next minute you're breaking them, because they're stealing. They're stealing from each other. They're stealing from you. They're stealing from the customers. There's so much negativity going on. It would be good for a couple of days. And she says, well, why does it keep happening? I said, because the front door is open. Everybody that comes in here. So unless you've got somebody saging somebody before they come in, you got to keep doing it. That's, they just didn't understand why it had to why they had to continue the maintenance of it, why it wasn't one and done, you know.
Oh,
So
let me tell you this story that I
go ahead.
so this guy that I used to work with, and I heard this story this year, a few months ago. He he's an actually he's an archaeologist, and he's PhD, and his wife is also in academia, and he said that he they were with this other couple, and they were kind of like browsing antique stores, and they one of them found a like an iron cross, and the one guy picked it up, and they all started, like, they were passing around to look at it, and he was like, "Oh, I ain't touching that." He said, and they're like, "Oh no, it's just a cross." He said, "No." He said that's the cross from the casket. He said that's death. He said that's death stuff. He
Oh,
said within 5 days, his wife got in a car wreck, and the other two people that was with him got in got in separate car wrecks. Some
yeah.
and he said he was the only one that didn't touch that thing. He said that's the thing that they used to nail to the coffin. He goes, I wasn't touching that. I was like,
That's so wild, man. There,
and
have
I
you
would
ever
ask
seen
him,
those badges that they used to put on the car? They were kind of cool. They look like belt buckles. I'm going to say Victorian times, maybe not everywhere, maybe like in Chicago or something. I don't know. But they were like brass, real pretty, almost looked like a cowboy's belt buckle, and it had the date and the name on it, would be on your coffin, as well as, and this lady had a bunch of them, like going along her stair. What are you doing? She had them going along her stair rail, like you would have pictures of the kids going up the stairs, like people do. She had them going up and she used to do the rubbings which, they're kind of cool. But think about it. She's doing these charcoal rubbings of the gravestones and framing them and putting them, and then and her house was full tilt boogie. I mean, I don't understand where this is coming from. Well, do you deal with, are you conjuring demons in your bathroom? Are you, doing black magic in your kitchen? What's going on? Somebody's doing something, because there's some really negative force going on in this house. And the mediums are walking up the stairs. They're going, okay, I'm getting this, I'm getting this, I'm getting this. And they were taking off of coffins. I guess they had a flood or something, and the coffins disintegrated. They just kept those, and they're like, okay, these look great going along my stairs. Yeah, we're gonna have to have all these down. All this stuff's got to come down. It's got to go out in the backyard. We got to burn this shit. I mean, it's just it's crazy what people do. And I think, some people can do it, Aaron. I mean, there's no definites in this. Some people can do it and never have a problem. Or they have problems, but they never, link the two together, like you said. I never touched this. They were able to link that. Well, what's the common
Hmm.
denominator here? Why is everybody? But a lot of people don't do that. Again, they'll say, well, I do Ouija board all the time. And it's almost like you can see this cartoon of this, just picture your typical 13-year-old teenage girl, like, with the hair in her eye, and she's like doing the Ouija board. I do this all the time and nothing happens. And the house next door bursts into flames, and the lady across the street gets hit by a car, and grandma dies of some kind of craziness. And, the teddy bear's walking around the house with a knife and you don't see it, whatever. There's all this stuff could be going on around you, and it's just not hitting you. It's using you as I guess, like a bridge, say, or a conductor. So it's running its energy through you and just hitting everybody that's weak at first to gain energy, and then it'll come back and really give you a good ride, you know. But it has all the time in the world. We tend to think, well, I did it, nothing bad happened that day.
Yeah,
Where
I don't buy anything at antique stores. I don't mind looking, and
Yeah,
I
I
like
feel
looking at,
you.
like when you see those old plates, they look like they're made in England with they'll have like the horse and carriage and,
Okay, yeah, yeah.
painted, what I'm
Yeah.
talking, like
Mhm.
that kind of stuff. It
Mhm.
looks like Victorian.
Yeah.
The it's that stuff's kind of fun to look at, but none of
Mhm.
that stuff comes home.
Yeah. I mean, if you do, you definitely got to cleanse it. Again, one of the worst things ever happened in this house I'm in was when Mario brought home that World War II rifle. I mean, there was so much on that thing. I felt it coming down the road. Like, what is that? It's getting closer. What the hell is that? Holy shit, what is that? I mean, it was like that. It was like, where's it coming from? I couldn't pinpoint it. I get this, and I'm like, it's getting closer and closer. And here comes the car coming down the road and pulling in the driveway, and it's getting stronger. And by the time he was at the door with this long box, I had no idea what he had bought or where he had gone or none of this. By the time he had got to the door and opened the screen door, I opened the inside door, and I'm standing there with Sage. Drop it. That's exactly what drop it. Whatever it is, step back, take 3 paces back and identify yourself. That's what I felt like I was doing,
Y-
but and it wasn't enough. So I agree.
Yeah, the I had an uncle that I would go stay with for like
Yep.
about a week during the summertime, and he didn't live very far from where we all lived, but like him and his wife were the only ones that never had any children. So she came from a family of 14 and she was the oldest. So you can imagine why she didn't want to have any children. And
Oh wow.
so him and his neighbor, they had a swimming pool that they shared, and so we'd go swimming all day long, and we'd go to the mall and do all kinds of we him and I would go golfing. We'd go golf like 36 holes, and we'd have a blast. But he was in World War II, and he had a um he had found like one of them officers' knives in a bunker on the
Oh,
enemies, so but
right.
nothing ever it was never nothing on it or nothing like that. But I asked him about it one time, and he told me he had sold it. But what I wanted was the serial number. I wanted to take a picture of it and get the serial number off because I knew a German guy that had a book that
Oh,
they were so meticulous about record keeping. We
right.
could have looked up that serial number, and I could
Found
have
it.
told him, yeah, it belonged to so and so.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
But
I mean, there was so much of that coming back from World
I
War
mean,
II. I mean,
that's what all the
bayonets and
Germans. Yeah, that's what all the Germans told me, that the Americans, they're like, oh, the Americans took all the good stuff back to the
yeah,
United States.
yeah, they did. I did.
all
I
the
knew a guy that once mailed home an M16 one piece at a time. And you know how hard that would be to do in the military. You know what
Yeah,
I mean?
I heard stories from the first. I was in high school. I was a senior in high school during the first Gulf War in 1991, and I heard stories from the people that had um been in the military a few years more than me. Right? They were talking about there were guys in the 5-ton or the 2.5-ton truck trying to breaking down AK-47s and putting them in the door.
Oh, wow. Oh,
Because
yeah. The
I mean,
stuff people
there
did,
was
man.
just a plate, right? You just
Yeah,
unscrewed the little plate on the,
right.
and they they were hiding those gun parts like all over the. Um, they probably got away with it. I mean, there's no
God,
customs when you're.
I know. I got so many stories.
I
I'm
don't
running.
blame
I'm like,
them.
nope, can't tell that one. Nope, statute of limitation. Nope. Okay, wait, no, I can't tell that one. I'm like, is there any stories I can tell? I'll tell you what. I got stories. I just can't tell them on here. Because, man, because when I was in, I went from a base. I did this thing. Look, the military's got a great sense of humor. Is that the baby? Is that the one that was on the TV show? What's his name?
Yeah, something fell down.
It's
It
okay.
was.
What's his name?
Oh,
What's
Rocky.
Rocky? Oh, cute, cool, like Rocky Raccoon. So I went from Fort Dix. I put in my paperwork. They ask you where you want to go. They're not. They have no intention of doing any of this shit. By the way, you're filling out paperwork. There's so much paperwork. So much paperwork. I mean, you have no idea how much. You think buying a house is a lot of paperwork? Do that, every hour on the hour for days. So you're filling out paperwork. It's like, where do you want to go? And I'm putting in whatever. And I remember putting down anywhere but Jersey. So I wound up doing my basic training and my AIT at Fort Dix. Should have never put that. And I was from Jersey. I had to go from Asbury Park. I had to go take a bus and go all the way to Newark just so I could take a bus from Newark to go all the way down to Fort Dix again. It was crazy. But anyhow, in Fort Dix, it was so tight. I mean, because you're basic AIT. I went to drill corporal school. I did so much there. And it was so tight. And I was doing, I think I left there at the end of October, and there was snow on the ground in Jersey because we were doing
Wow.
push-ups in snow. Where you could see your face in the snow, and we were just planting it. Because we weren't gonna. By then, you're not gonna budge. You're P and OD green at this point. So we were just seeing how far we get our faces in the snow. It's like one drill sergeant. I mean, enjoying the heck out of it. Then I drive to my next duty station, which is Redstone Arsenal, Alabama, and I get there, and there's nobody in the guard shack. There's nobody. There's a eighth of an inch of snow, a light dusting, and I'm like, and I'm just sitting there because I'm heavily trained private at this point, and you're scared to do anything, you know. And I was like, I park the car, I look, I get out of the car, I pull the car back, I get out, I kind of look around the guard shack, I'm trying to report for duty, and I can't get in the base. There's nobody there, and there's no guard thing. I mean, it was wide open at that point. And I'm like, do I go in? What do I do? So I'm driving real slow. The point was, this was the most lax base I had ever seen in my life. The whole base was closed for 3 days because there was a dusting of snow. And I'm like, I just did push ups in 2.5 feet of snow. You know what I mean? In Jersey. What's going on here? But this place was so lax. So, like we said last night, when it's the boredom, and when there's the boredom, you got guys hiding 16 AK-47s and Jeeps and stuff. And they're doing the stuff that they did. They're going down into these bunkers and collecting things. I mean, I couldn't believe it. And you're at somebody's house, you're just there for a kid's birthday party or something, and then you go, all the guys are around the keg, you're out there, and they're passing stuff around. Well, where the heck did you get this? It was like, well, me and a bunch of guys were out drinking, and we came back early from the club, and we decided we were going to go out in the fields. We were going to do this, that. I'm like, don't tell me anything else. I don't want to know anything else. You guys are nuts. I don't want to know anything else. The stuff these guys would do and get away, and still to this day, gotten away with. I cannot believe it. I just really can't believe it. But
Yeah,
it's funny.
my uncle had his my uncle had his rifle from World War II.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
he told me it would knock me over if I shot it. And I believed him.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Well, I'll tell you what. Let's go to Australia, my friend. I thought last night we left off. I These are great stories, and I really love this guy. This paranormal parapsychologist. So here's the documentary. It's called Haunted. It's an Australian documentary from the 1980s that investigates 14 credible cases of paranormal activity. I love how they put credible, you know. It is hosted by Dr. Maurice Marsh of the University of New England, New South Wales, Australia. And they also apologize for the poor video quality because it was recorded off of TV. I think it came out pretty clear. As long as you guys can hear it and everything. How's everybody doing in chat? Good. We saw a couple things here I wanted to bring up. Kathleen, that was crazy. You were talking about, I think you said was it your grandfather? Did you happen to see that? Oh, here it is. I wanted you to see this, Aaron. My grandfather was a stone engraver. He would bring people's urns home and engrave them when we were little. We could hear people coming up the stairs at night and nobody there. I mean, just think about that. These little kids hearing that and putting it together. Um, I often think of those items of war and stolen items that are spread out all over the place. Yeah, that's it too. And I think there was one here where she said the ashes fell off a mantle or something, and the ashes went all over the place. That would be just devastating. I mean, I just heard one. I think it was at I can't remember whose concert it was, but I think it was Pink. And somebody threw her mother's ashes up on the stage, and Pink stopped singing and said, "What's this?" And she's like leaning to the audience. She's like, "That's my mom. Why would you throw your mother's ashes up on the stage?" I guess she always wanted to go to a Pink concert, so
Oh,
I guess
do you
she made
know?
it.
Do you know in one of Pink's videos that she has the guy with the top hat and the makeup with
I don't know if I know the video, but go ahead.
um I can't remember what the video is called or what her song is called, but she's got the guy with the top hat and the cane, and he's
Hmm.
got the face paint.
I think I know what you mean. Yeah, go ahead.
It looks like a skeleton. You know what that is, right?
Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Um those people are satanic priests.
I thought that that's what you were describing. I can't get the visual in my head. I think I stopped watching a lot of music videos a long time ago, unless I see it for another reason because I know that there's frequencies in it and it really does affect me. And but when you said that, that's what I visualized. Um, Hoodoo. It's hoodoo. It's out of New Orleans. It's
Oh,
black. Yeah, yeah. And but it's very deep, dark. I mean, it's in a lot of cultures, but if you were to try to visualize what you're describing, I mean, I bet it looks just like it. Um, that's where you get that the top hat, the cane, and the tuxedo with the whole thing. Yeah,
mhm.
you're absolutely right. In fact, they were. If you saw the first Hocus Pocus, the band that was playing, I put a spell on you. They were dressed that way as well. Do you remember? I don't know if you
Uh
ever saw the first Hocus Pocus.
oh, I never saw I never I think cuz I lived overseas for so long I missed a
Mm.
lot of that stuff.
So just picture a whole band dressed like that, and that's what they look like.
Oh yeah, they hide in Hollywood
Plain
just
sight.
hides. They hide in plain sight.
Plain sight. Well, that's because it makes their magic work better. We're going to show you what we're going to do. If you don't do anything about it, that's just like you're agreeing to it. So it makes it stronger for them. And it supposedly takes out let's just put it this way, the karma, the bad karma, so they don't get the bad karma from it. But it's a little different to them. So, but that's the closest translation I can give you on that. But that's what's going on there. So anyway, going to Australia. I know it's funny. I can sit here and talk to
Okay.
Aaron all night long. Oh, there's the baby. Hi, the baby. Hi,
he
the
has to
baby.
he has to sit on me all the time.
Oh, that's great, though. That's great. We love animals here. That's for sure.
Mm,
it wouldn't be a trip to Australia without visiting our friend Warwick Moss. So I thought I'd throw up a short one here, and then we can go and finish up the one from last night. But this is a really good one too. But we just love Warwick Moss, and without we can't go to Australia without hearing from him. So this is a quick, like a little 10-minute one, and we can talk over it. Or if you need to go walk the dog or something, feel free. Make yourself at home. Okay. Here we go.
Yeah, I might need to let him out.
That's fine. Do whatever you need to do, sweetie. Kangaroos. What's a drop there? Is that something dirty? Great pictures.
It's near midnight. I feel the cold in my bones. Some say ghosts feel like that all the time.
He's the best show presenter.
Those
Isn't
who
he?
met a grisly end in this life.
I just love him. Ooh.
I wonder if he's in a lot of commercials
in the
down there
colonial
too.
days,
I don't
Fred
know.
Fisher was one of those pioneers who had the stuff legends are made of. In life and in death, he's helped enrich Australia's folklore. You see, more than a century and a half after he was brutally murdered, Fred's ghost can still be heard around his old hometown. A ghost with a mission and a wicked sense of humour.
Oh, Fred's a larrikin. He's got an attitude on him.
Fred Fisher's story begins in the settlement of Campbelltown in the early 1800s.
That looks dry and hot, doesn't it?
As old Sydney town pushed ever westward, the bush was raised to make way for cattle and crops. It was a land of opportunity, where ex-convicts rubbed shoulders with landholders.
Fisher was a young shopkeeper
Very
in
cool.
London, and he was in his early 20s when he was caught red-handed. He had forged banknotes in his possession, and next thing he was transported to New South Wales for 14 years.
Historian
That's cool.
Verlie Fowler has traced Fred Fisher's colourful life and times. She's discovered that he served only half the 14-year sentence, and by 1826 he'd become a respected landowner and builder. Around that time, he had a neighbour called George Worrell, the man who was to become his nemesis.
And at the time, Fisher didn't have a house to live in, so Fisher moved in with Worrell next door. As well, there were a number of workmen employed by Fisher. They were also living in Worrell's house, and there was quite a crowd of them actually, and they used to go down to the local hotel drinking at night. But then one night on the 17th of June 1826, Fisher just suddenly mysteriously disappeared. Worrell was arrested and questioned about what had happened to Fisher. He stuck to the story that Fisher had gone back to England.
So, what the police had was a missing man, a suspect, but no body. For months, the investigation stalled. And then there was a breakthrough, a vital clue that some believe came from the dead man himself.
Late one night, a local identity, John Farley, was stumbling home after a heavy night at one of the local taverns. His route took him along a deserted bush track near Fred Fisher's place. He came to a wooden bridge, and there, right ahead, was a sight that shocked him into sobriety. A man with a bloody head wound sitting on the bridge railing. Slowly he began beckoning, pointing to the creek below. That man was Fred Fisher, the late Fred Fisher.
The next day, a bewildered John Farley told police what he'd seen. By coincidence, at about the same time, two boys were playing around the old bridge. They stumbled on a trail of blood. That trail of blood was exactly where the ghost of Fred Fisher had pointed.
The police brought in two black trackers, and quite amazingly, it didn't take them very long to find where the body was buried. They recovered the body and it was obvious that Fisher had been brutally bashed. His head was just completely caved in, and it had been a very brutal murder.
And that was the end of Fisher's neighbour, George Worrell, brought to justice with the help of a ghost.
George Worrell was found guilty of the murder and he was hanged. There were two men still locked up after he'd been hanged, but at that stage the authorities decided to drop the charges against them, so they were freed. So only Worrell was hanged for the murder.
It seems, though, Fred Fisher still had some unfinished business. 30 years ago, for instance, Marlene Skipper is certain she saw Fisher's ghost. At that time, Marlene, her husband and their young daughter Tracy lived in a house built on the property once owned by Fred Fisher. Strange things happened in that house, especially on the staircase and in the rooms on the top floor.
And that's where this person was who was staring at me. And although I wasn't game to look, I was too scared to look, I just knew he was there. I just wouldn't look up. The hair would stick up on the back of my neck and you get shivery because you know that there is somebody there watching you.
From that moment, Marlene was so terrified she refused to go up those stairs ever again. Strangely enough, though, her daughter Tracy had no fear at all. She turned the haunted staircase and the top floor into a world of her own. And one night, Marlene's husband, Harry, learned the ghostly secret of Tracy's world.
He heard Tracy running around screaming. Sounded like she was chasing something or someone was chasing her. So he ran up there, 2 or 3 steps. He was panicking. There was nothing up there. He picked Tracy up and brought her downstairs and she started crying. She wanted to talk to Uncle Fred. So we sat her down and said, "Who's Uncle Fred?" And she showed us he was her friend. And they played together, and they played chasings and skippings, and they sing songs. We had no relations called Fred. There just wasn't any Freds, and she couldn't even say uncle and auntie properly. So, no, there was no Uncle Freds in the family. She couldn't have mistaken it for anybody else. Nothing even by the sound, sounding like Fred. Nothing.
Was Tracy's playmate the ghost of Fred Fisher? That's the way local legend has it. And flick through the Campbelltown archives and you have to admit the evidence does build up. Take the case of the film company back in the 1920s that decided the legend of Fisher's ghost would make a great movie. It was a decision they'd regret, all the way to bankruptcy.
They had all sorts of production problems, I understand, and immediately after the film was finished, the whole company collapsed in financial disarray. Again, who can say, is that Fred?
For years, journalist Jeff McGill has been chronicling the activities of Fisher's ghost in the pages of the local newspaper, always with his tongue planted firmly in his cheek. That was until 1982, when they moved to new premises. The new building just happened to be on Fred Fisher's old property. And one afternoon, Jeff McGill was working alone in the deserted top floor.
That was when I heard a voice talking at me, and it was really weird because I couldn't tell whether it's male or female to this day. I could have bet that sensation you get when they are definitely talking at you. And I said, "Sorry? Who's there?" And there was no answer. And I thought it was somebody skylarking down trying to put the wind up me. So I thought I'd turn the tables, and I jumped up and sort of dived out into the hallway, and there was no one there. And at that exact moment, the pigeons that roost or nest out near the air conditioning ducts at the back of the building, suddenly, like a bolt out of the blue, just shot off with the feathers flying, and at that exact time, a very, very cold sensation in the hallway.
With the experience of history to go on, the owners of the Fisher's Ghost restaurant were taking a risk when they named it after Fred. There's every indication he's none too pleased and has made his presence felt more than once. One morning, the owner, a former mayor of Campbelltown, Gordon Fetterplace, was first to arrive and found all 4 fires blazing.
See, that's so dangerous.
All the lights turned on.
I mean, come on.
And that was against Gordon's strict instructions. Not surprisingly, he wanted to know why when the assistant manager arrived.
And she said, look, Gordon, I put them out, and what's more, I went upstairs twice to make sure that they were out, and the lights were definitely out.
Gordon and his staff were just getting over that when they were confronted by this, another of Fred's practical jokes. Again, an empty restaurant, but this time, every single painting on the walls tipped sideways. No one had been in the restaurant overnight. There were no signs of a break-in, just a sneaking suspicion that Fisher's ghost had been at it again.
I'm not
And
hearing
finally,
them, Aaron.
it seems the ghost is attracted by the theatre, a down-under Phantom of the Opera. Here, there's been an unexplained presence for years, officially unexplained, but the Campbelltown cast and crew have no doubts who it is.
This ghost gets around,
On
don't
a
he?
Saturday afternoon, Greg Dillon was working alone in the props department.
He says, no, he's
Well,
got 2 dogs
Maybe not quite alone.
at his house.
I heard footsteps across the stage. They were distinctive footsteps, not hurried, just walking across the stage. And I expected to see somebody pop down the stairs at the side and to where I was working, but nobody arrived. And I carried out a search of the theatre, and there was nobody at all in the theatre.
With this particular ghost, it's often a case of lights, theatre, action. Take just one rehearsal. Director Barbara Handley was putting the cast through their paces. Suddenly, they were rudely interrupted.
The lady that was the musical director was down in the orchestra pit along with just a pianist, no one else. And the lights went off in the orchestra pit. And the musical director says, oh, for goodness sake, put the lights back on Fred, because we always call him Fred. And the lights just went back on in front of all those people.
That was with a crowd of people. The ghost encore came when Barbara Handley was in the darkened theatre. It was late at night. She was by herself.
I heard, sounded like somebody walking through the auditorium. So I called that, and they stopped, and I thought, oh, I was hearing things. And then they started up again. So I started to back towards the door, really scared. I was really quite upset. You know, it really frightened me that night. And being on your own, so I never come in the theatre on my own.
A man murdered back in 1836. A ghost that's haunted a community across 2 centuries. Sometimes a benevolent ghost, occasionally more sinister.
Well, there you go. I don't know if all that was Fred, but highly interesting. Highly interesting. I don't know if there was anything during the experiences in the theater where they saw him. Why are you thinking it's Fred? You see what I mean? Now the other ones, That's amazing. And he pointed out the blood trail where he was on the bridge. Pretty cool. What's going on? Did you catch your flies there, Ted? It was funny. My boss at work the other day, she said, "I wonder what Native Americans did about mosquitoes and things like that." I know it was such a weird thing, just out of nowhere. She's just, putting sticking flowers in a vase. That's what we do all day long. And I just kind of what? She said, "Well, do you think there was mosquitoes back then?" I'm like, "Yeah, there's mosquitoes. You know, well, mud and mint. They used to make a thing out of mint and crush the oils and stuff, and that kept them go. Bear grease, yeah, definitely used a lot of that bear grease. But I don't know if that kept them off. I know they did a thing with mud, but mostly mint oil because it grew. You can imagine how strong it was back then. I mean, the piddly stuff we have now, right? But and even if it's all over my backyard, I got like 5 different kinds out there. Chocolate mint, peppermint, spearmint, wintergreen. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff. And it is a ground cover, so it was big, patches of it all over the place. So I know the East Coast, but I don't know, desert and stuff like that. I have no idea you know, how they did it, but that's an interesting thing to look up. I know that mint really works. Raccoons don't like it, but who's to say? How strong this stuff is today that compared to what it used to be. But that is, if you get a natural bug spray, the big stuff in that is lemongrass oil. Some is, a cedar. Some will do lots of different mints. Peppermint for sure. Spiders hate peppermint. So just so you know. They just get away from that stuff. You want to mix some of that and some 100 proof vodka and spray it around your house. So what'd you think? Do you think that all those ghosts were Fred there, Aaron? Or do you think that they're just filling in the blanks? I think some of it was probably that guy.
Yeah, nobody ever thinks to cross those people over to either or help them.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And
It's
you
a it's
wonder, I know we
it's
got
just
a
a tiny
delay, so
tiny
keep talking.
percentage.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I don't understand that. And I'm really glad you brought that up because that's the big thing here. It's like 2 centuries. Um, I think when I go to Gettysburg, I think the Devil's Den is under reconstruction. I don't know what they're doing moving around boulders, I guess. I don't know what they're doing. But I was hoping that it would be done by now because to sit on those rocks, and you just, is there anybody here? Just you and them, you know, sit down next to me. Let's talk, just don't stay here. You don't have to stay here. We've had to get, well, you'll get this, a big thing on the battlefield. If you can get them, sometimes they don't want to leave because they got other buddies there that aren't quite in the mindset to make a choice yet, if you know what I mean. So they'll stay until they're ready to go. You get a lot of that. But the big thing there is you got to, they're not going to go till they're properly relieved. We've had to stand in the field and tell them we're here. We're your relief. You can go now, and you get that. You can't leave your post.
I read something that right there on those, they call it the hippie. There's a thing called the hippie that's there that'll talk to people.
Oh, in Gettysburg?
Hmm. In that spot you were talking about.
Oh, in Devil's Den?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. There's a guy. Um, yeah, he's really chill. He's like he's popped up and giving people directions, like if they were lost or something. It was like, what are you looking for? And he
Hmm.
turned around to thank him, and he's gone. Yeah, that guy. Yeah, I've never seen him. It's so weird. I get a lot of the really. I'm trying to find the right word for it. Usually, if I call out, I'll ask for the highest ranking officer or highest ranking person there so I could talk to them. And right away, I'll start getting their attention. And usually, those are they're pretty aware of kind of what's going on. They don't have it completely sorted, but they definitely see the difference around them, but it seems like they sink back into a almost their time and place, like almost like time slips for them in some cases. But I get a lot of that. Maybe that's just the energy that I draw, because I go in and talk to him. It's like I'm more matter of fact. It's like, okay, I'm on a mission. I'm here, let's just do this. And where are you? Do you have anybody else that wants to go? Let's get them, lifeboat's leaving, let's go, because I'm always there in a short amount of time. Now, when I go to Hoover House or something like that, sometimes we'll have more time because they've usually been there and the spirit guides there. Let's just put it that way. The spirit guides that kind of are in and around that house and hang out with the people and all that. They're really good at kind of doing a triage, so to speak, on the earthbounds that come through. So they'll get them all sorted. It's like, okay, you're waiting on, okay, well, that couple's not, you can just see what's going on the other side. It's crazy. It's almost like they're going, okay, well, that couple's not coming here till next Friday. But we'll check on that, see, make sure that they've got all their stuff. And I really believe they do that because that's the kind of information we get, to where like grandma, Agnes has shown up because her granddaughter and her granddaughter's new husband and the kids or whatever are coming to stay at that bed and breakfast, and this is where she's meeting them. It's insane. And Gettysburg, and I think a lot of different battlefields, Fredericksburg is a lot like that too. But in certain places, Aaron, it's like, if you think about it and you really, if you really just try to think about it, put yourself in their shoes and what we know, and, the feelings that we've had, sitting in, whatever it may be, any minuscule thing like guard duty or just laying and watching the field or a tactical bivouac, whatever it would be, and who you huddle with, it's like, and if you were waiting for a battle to start, and you've built your stone wall or you found some fallen log or you've got a corner of a building or fence, these guys are hiding behind split rail fences. That's not a lot of cover. The name says it all. It's a split rail fence with a lot of open, so they would just really quickly try to dig in or dig down into the ground to get some kind of a, a thing. And that this is where they seem to huddle now. Does that make sense? So if you go over to the stone wall and you sit and you're quiet, and you start putting out your intent, you see what I mean? They seem to be gathered in these spots. And, in the center of the field, you get more of a erratic. It's like the only thing you can do is send out so much love and so much understanding and so much, not just honoring what they did because they're really not there yet. What the middle of the field, it's more, imagine yourself standing in the scene from Gettysburg or any war movie you've ever seen where everybody's clashing together and it's gunpowder and dust and dirt and shrapnel and exploding cannonballs, and this person's gone, and you don't even know what's coming across your face. I mean, I hate to get graphic with you, but some of these guys, it's like they're blinking and they can't even stop to wipe their eyes as they're running, and they're trying to blink, and they've got their buddy just got shot and it's their blood in their eyes, and these guys are still running, and it's the sounds and everything else. Now, you're going to stand in the center of that kind of energy. This is what they're going through. And you're going to stand there and go, hey guys, tell me what the war is like. Do you see my point? I can see people going in that field and doing something like I saw last weekend. I saw some wonderful people from, there's two different, well, there's probably more than that, but people that try to keep the history going. So you've got the national park, we got flies too. Ted, is that one of yours? Did you send them over here? I think it's a fly laying on my forehead. but they've got two different organizations working on it. They're both fabulous, and they'll go out in the field and they'll tell the story, and they'll read like from a journal, like so witness report kind of reading the journals from somebody was at the wheat field or in the wilderness or at Devil's Den and what happened, or marching in or out of Gettysburg or whatever. And I can see if they were doing a ceremony such as that, where they're telling the story and they're with reverence and they're honoring that, I could see them calming for that, because there's so much energy there, all thinking about them at the same time with kind of a good intent. But you can't just walk into a place like that and imagine that they're seeing and feeling and experiencing the same atmosphere that you are, because they're not in a lot of cases. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Didn't they fight at that particular spot in Devil's Den? Like, was it like hand to hand right there? And it was
Yeah.
pretty. It was
Oh
pretty
yeah.
brutal.
Oh yeah. Because yeah. And there was all of this going on with the generals picking this or that, or, Hood saying, we should have gone around to the right, and, all this. They just kept forcing these guys up these rocks. So you're climbing up rocks. So you've got, again, all war is hell, right? But they're climbing up this rock, and just the amazement. I think it's best portrayed if you've ever seen Gettysburg with Chamberlain and the main boys up there, and they're just amazed at what they're seeing, and the boys from Texas and Tennessee. And if I forget anybody, please forgive me. I'm no historian, but they keep coming up the hill and then falling back again, and then reforming and coming back up again. It's like Hamburger Hill, but in Gettysburg, and they're fighting in all these rocks. Well, on the other side is Devil's Den. Now, the name was mostly, there's some controversy on when it was named and what it means. It doesn't matter. That day it was christened Devil's Den for the reason you think it was. It was hell. And there was places that as a squad, you would see like a natural formation of these great big boulders, and you go down into it. Almost looks like a tornado shelter. I mean, perfect with rock walls on the side, and you literally walk down. It's amazing. That's called Hell's Kitchen. And when you walk down in there, you could almost see and feel the elation of some of the young kids that got down in there and thought that this would be a great place to fight from. Because you've got the rock walls, you got everything else, you've got a good angle. What they didn't know is they were getting flanked. So basically their fortress became their grave. And they were all just, shot like fish in a barrel, literally. And so in any of those places, that rock holds such a memory and such an echo. Now, what did that professor call that last night? Ether, so because we stone tape theory, the land and the materials and the rock absorbs, the memory almost like an imprint. He called it ether, something in the ether. But basically it all means the same thing. Such a burst of emotion and energy, and it's imprinted and replays. In Devil's Den, you've got such an overwhelming amount of that, on top of people like the hippie, who's just got his stuff together. He's chill. He knows what he's doing. He likes to pop in and out, help people and poof out, no big deal. Again, he should cross, but if I bump into him, we'll talk about it. We'll see what's up. But man, yeah, those rocks, and just to look at every direction, and as leaders choosing that to be happy. Yeah, you got the high ground, absolutely great defense. You got these great rocks you can hide behind. But basically what happens, they got sandwiched and then came in on the side and pushed again. So it just all, man, it's bad. And you can't walk on those rocks without feeling it. I see little kids and little Boy Scout troops and stuff coming through, and the kids jumping all over their parkouring off of everything and stuff. And, you know, even in that kind of energy that they're just being kids out on a field trip, that, hey, man, this is cool. They're thinking more about get snakes in the rocks than anything else. But even on them, you can see once they stop for a minute and look around, you can see that they're feeling something too. That kind of rabbit bing bang boom kind of energy, just ever so, little bit, that reverence just kind of gets in there, and they stop for a moment and they just kind of soak it in. It's quite the place. Really is. I think any battlefield like that is, if they've kept it up, and not made it crazy, like you said before, like the Lizzie Borden house, where that's just a free for all for everybody. But anyway, yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited to go there. So wait a minute. Let's see here what's going on. I
Do you
couldn't
ever
look at the
smell?
chat. Go ahead, sweetie.
Oh, did you ever smell smoke?
Yeah. Heard cannons. Horses breathing,
Mm-hmm.
and almost you could hear if you've ever been near a horse and especially hugged a horse or whatever, when he takes that deep breath, you could hear it echo in that thick throat of theirs. There's a certain sound. You could hear that, you didn't hear I didn't hear any running or anything like that. But, when it came to that, the cannon was several times, definitely feel it. I'm trying to think of all the different little things, definitely lots of orbs and stuff like that. But see, with me, my personal abilities is I feel them. I don't see them anymore because I did something. And I've talked to a lot of mediums and a lot of people with different abilities, just trying to understand it like we were trying to understand everything. And sometime in my teenagehood, I said, no more. I don't want to see you anymore. I don't want to. I can't deal with this. Just you're like, hey, how you doing? And they're in their death state, and you got something hanging off or something. It's like I'm like, whoa, this and it's funny because it seems like you can do that, but very quickly you can cut it off. I don't want any part of this, but you can't get it back as easy. It's like, okay, I'm ready for it now. I can handle it. It doesn't work that way. I can't figure that one out. Isn't that strange? That's happened to other people too. What classic? What a classic horror movie. Which one are you talking about, sweetie? Did I mention one? I probably did.
The Howling, I think.
Oh, The Howling? Oh, gosh, yeah. That was such a big deal to see that. Now, look, you can just see anything. Back then, you couldn't get anything. I mean, made for TV movies and stuff like that. Or when they'd get a blockbuster and cut it all up and edit it for TV and then put it on. Like, I remember they did that to Planet of the Apes. And I don't even think they let them say, you damn dirty ape. I don't even think they let them say that when we saw it in the 70s on TV. Now you do. But, okay, well, I'll tell you what, I'm going to play this other one, and I'm going to try to catch up with the chat because I'm seeing a lot of cool stuff in here. Jack's got something here too, and I'm missing all this wisdom in this chat. Pickett's division suffered 2,655 casualties, 498 killed, 643 wounded, 833 wounded and captured, and 681 captured unwounded on that day. Yes, absolutely. Pickett, General, I have no division. Yeah, it's so funny, Jack, did you say that? I'm such a goof. I swear to God, it's so funny, Aaron, in my house. It's like, I'm going to go watch a movie, and when women say they're going to go watch a movie, you think it's like a romantic comedy or something. I hate that shit so much. I'm going to go watch Patton. I'm going to go watch Gettysburg. I'm going to go watch Last of the Mohicans. That's about as much as I can stand. That was a great story. But it's so funny, the stuff that I watch. So what do you listen to? Axe Murder. What are you listening to? What are you watching? Dirty Dozen. It's just Rambo. Something like that. But anyhow, last night I was watching, after I did the interview, I wanted to watch something a little lighter, so I watched the interview with now I won't be able to remember his name. Ooh, it just left me. Darn it. Guy who played Pickett in Gettysburg. He also played Pickett in Gods and Generals. He got to play both. Stephen, help me chat. Where's Glenn? Where's Jack? Where's Ted? Come on, and then somebody throw it at me. Stephen. Oh shoot! It was such a good one, and he was talking about how he got the part for to play Pickett. The guy knew he wanted to play Pickett. The book came out 60s, I think. He said he read it in the 70s, and he told a friend of his that he was going to play Pickett. He goes to school, he goes to college, does all these things, bing, bang, boom, all around. He's playing a little theater. He was playing Hamlet, some, whatever, drama that he was in. And he goes to breakfast. His friend tells him, "Hey, didn't you like that Gettysburg? They're going to put that movie together. They're in town doing, I can't remember where he was, doing some scouting." And he said, "Really?" No, it wasn't Steven Seagal. He would have made a horrible Pickett. Stephen Lang. Thank you.
Lang.
Yes. Thank you. I almost said thank you to you like you were in the chat. We are in the chat. You're both. You're ambidextrous. So it was, Stephen Lang. So he goes, he says, "Wow, that's something. Really, they're finally making that a movie. That's great, because Killer Angels is one hell of a book." I've told the story about how my son read that like 3 times in the 3rd grade, and he was still reading it in the 5th grade. He loved it so much. And chip off the old block. So he goes, he leaves there. He gets they're going out for a couple beers or whatever after playing Hamlet. He goes walking out the door, goes to the first little outside bistro thing, and here he sits down, and the guy comes up and introduces himself, and it's the guy looking for people for he's the guy doing the casting for Gettysburg, and I can't remember. Had Stephen Lang, just without thinking, he goes, "Hi, I'm General Pickett." And he got the part. By the end of the day, he had the part. It was incredible. He was born to play Pickett. He even practiced with that horse. I think his name was Storm, and just so he could come in, and the horse kind of comes in, does a little like kind of show off to the side, and then rears up, and Stephen Lang as Pickett says, "Virginia has arrived," just to kind of make a big scene when he shows up at the fire pit that night in Gettysburg as Pickett. But I don't know if the real Pickett did that, but he was a dandy for sure. They said he smelled wonderful. But it's a hell of a movie. The book's better. Have you read any of the books? Jeff and Michael Shara? Killer Angels, Gods and Generals, and The Last Full Measure of Devotion. And they were working on The Last Full Measure of Devotion. Now, it all starts, Gods and Generals is the beginning. It kind of moves through the beginning of the war, all of the subsequent battles and things that happened. Really puts a lot in the first book, right up into Gettysburg. Killer Angels is all Gettysburg and the retreat. And Last Full Measure of Devotion is from there and the finish of the war. And father and son. The father started it. The son jumped in and helped him. The father died. The son finished. It's incredible. Incredible series. Has nothing to do with Australia. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, I like the Ken Burns version. That really long documentary. The thing I liked about it the most was that they were reading the letters that the soldiers were writing, describing what was going on, and even like the privates, whatever, they were so articulate.
Absolutely.
They really had a great command of the English language.
Absolutely. And it was, and see,
better we do.
So true. And a sweet honor to it, because back then handwriting and of course your vocabulary was, meant your schooling and how you were, raised up, and your signature was everything, and how you, how articulate you were, and your writing. It was such an important thing. in the male and the females, because I'll tell you, it was a big deal for them. They were scrounging around for anything to write a letter home, you know. And there's not a lot that still exists, because the sweet thing about it is a lot of the sweethearts back and forth, whether husband, wife, whatever, doesn't matter, whether enlisted man or officer, the letters back and forth, the women would keep them until the very end when they started to get older, and then they threw them in the fire, because they were so private, they didn't want anybody to read them. A lot of people did, and because they were very you know, they were just as let's just say randy as we were, are now. And back and forth they would say things, but in such a beautiful way. Some of these letters, I mean, they would say that they were just way too private and way too intimate for anybody to read, and they would burn them. But just hearing a soldier, leaning up against a tree trying to write out his thoughts in his journal, or back home in any of these letters, and describing an apple that he shared with 2 or 3 other guys, and it was like the best part of the day when they were able to taste that bit of home and made them homesick, and they write about that. Or and so, like you said, it's poetry. It really, really is poetry in a lot of ways. And I'll tell you what, folks, don't be fooled. You hear everybody say that they don't want kids to learn cursive because they don't need it, and they're texting, and pretty soon they'll just be signing an X or a thumbprint or an eye scan or some whatever. No, they don't want you to read these journals, these letters, these papers from back in the day, your Magna Carta, whatever it may be in your country. But it's also the journals and the personal letters and the profound statements from people like the Sons of Liberty. The letters written back and forth from husband and wife, what was going on in the battles and things like that. They don't want you to be able to sort that stuff. They don't want you to know it. So make sure your kids can read writing, and keep getting them to write letters back and forth, even if it's little notes. And you tell them, it's almost at this point like learning a secret code. The Declaration of Independence, absolutely uncommon. But again, like it's the journals. It's because if you get into some of these journals, there's a young lady, I think she was 13 at the beginning of the war. Everybody, back and forth in it, cousin this, brother that, whatever, how it affected everybody in her area. And then it went through all the way to the end. Is one of the best accounts. I can't remember her name at this point, but one of the best accounts from beginning to end. And it had everything, the information they were given, when they got it, how little information they had, how they didn't know one thing from another. So many parents, moms, wives, whatever, thought their people were dead, because for 2-3 years. And here they come out of the, walking out of the woods, like in the Sackets in the beginning, when Tom Selleck and Sam Elliott walk out of the woods with their horses all worn, torn in their Confederate uniforms, and their mom's working in the field. It's a real tearjerker. But their mom's working in the field, and Sam Elliott says something to, Grandpa that met him on the road or whatever, and she overheard his voice, and she shot up out of that cornfield so quick, boy, picking beans or whatever she was doing. She said, "I know that voice anywhere." Thought her boys were dead. They were playing brothers. But that scene a million times over, because the communication was shitty. I mean, the war ended. They signed that in Appomattox, and it took 6 months for them to. There was still fighting going on out west and all over the place. I mean, it took so long for the word to get out. And then you got all the crazy people looking for deserters and rangers, and human
Yeah,
beings are
I
shitty.
just seen a short where, and I can't remember how long it was, but they had signed the treaty, the surrender, and then there was like one last battle that still, it was like 3 or 4 months later
Mm.
that they just refused to quit. And
Hmm.
what's really sad too is those guys from Anderson Prison, and then one of
Oh,
the boats caught on fire, and then they were getting released, and then they end up dying.
it's a freaking tragedy, man. I
That's
mean, just
sad.
I know, dude. I know. And Ted, they better learn. Tell your grandkids you're going to teach them a secret code. Teach them to write cursive, teach them to read cursive, force them to do it. Tell them that they have to write it in your birthday card, but write it in cursive. Don't make it easy on them. Tell them if they can read what you wrote, you'll give them the money that was going to go in the card. Make them want it. You got to get tricky with them, because I'll tell you what, they'll thank you forever, because if they ever come across something that's written like that, they really can. I mean, it's like, I've heard these people talk about it. I remember my sister 15, 20 years ago, I want to say, maybe not so far as 20, but close. She was on the Board of Education, and she was fighting not to take cursive out of the school for the very reason I'm talking about. But she didn't go as deep as the journals, but the journals are big. I mean, when there is no more internet and people discover libraries again, and all those research books and all those reference books that you can't take out of the library, they need to be able to read those, because it's going to give them a lot of information that they're going to need. Here pretty soon, they're not going to be able to read if we follow this down, and they'll just have their computer read it to them. And then they won't be able to read anything. They really will be going around deaf, dumb, and blind at that point.
It'll be the movie Wall-E,
Yeah.
where they're floating around in chairs drinking soda all day long.
Mm-hmm. Deaf, dumb, and blind. Yeah. So, I know, Ted, right? I know. All right, I'm going to put this on, and we can keep talking if you want to go get something to drink. But I'm going to get some hot tea. If you remember correctly, we were talking about this lady. She saw this, there was a lot going on in the house. Remember, they didn't have a car, and they went on for a vacay. And welcome in, North Carolina. Hello. How you doing, Shug? Hey, Sarah, I didn't see you in here. Hello, babe. So they didn't have a car, and they had to stay. It was pretty interesting. And we'll go on to the next little story. Okay, and we'll keep talking. Welcome in, everybody.
No, I really can't give an explanation.
Oh,
A lot of things just happened.
This is the one where the lady tasted the blood. Do you remember this from last night? Shit, yep. That's blood. Crazy people.
But no explanation whatsoever. I'm absolutely stumped.
Remember that? Let me get some tea, guys. Right.
York Hostel seemed to come straight out of a horror movie. It also snowballed from day to day, so that by the final night, things were becoming very hectic indeed. I think those people were lucky that they could leave the following day, otherwise the disturbances would have got even worse. When children are involved in a group like that, it's best to get them out as quickly as possible and back to their own homes. But, in a way, the adults brought all that on themselves, because what they were doing was reliving an ancient fairy story, exploring the forbidden room. They were told that a part of the building was off limits, and they went back to it again and again and again. And every time they did that, the disturbances got worse. But let's leave the possibility of evil forces for the time being, and instead turn to some ghosts that are much less threatening. There's some ghosts that inspire a great deal of affection in living people.
The Rocks, a small area nestling in the shadows of Sydney Harbour Bridge, probably has more ghosts per square kilometre than any other spot in the country. The British settlement of Australia began here on January the 26th, 1788, when Captain Arthur Phillip sailed the first fleet into Sydney Harbour. From that time onwards, it has been an ideal breeding ground for ghosts, built by convict chain gangs which suffered the continent's first whippings and hangings. Despite high hopes for the colony, the Rocks became a haven for thugs, drunks and prostitutes, and the site of Australia's first prison. Later it became a slum area, and in 1900 there was an outbreak of bubonic plague. Poorer residents were forced out so the infected buildings could be fumigated or demolished. The surviving buildings are now being restored by the Sydney Cove Redevelopment Authority. the sort of conservative, semi-government body which would normally never believe in ghosts. The trouble is that its own information centre, in a former coroner's court and mortuary, is haunted by a mischievous ghost which the staff have nicknamed Fred. It first appeared to an office manager
Another Fred.
who saw
Maybe
the
it's the same
apparition of a
one.
young man which called out, "I am innocent." The current information officer, Josephine Christensen, has no fear of Fred. In fact, she seems rather fond of him.
Do you know anything of the history of Fred or why he may be haunting this place?
No, I wish Fred would tell us. I'm sure we'd all be very pleased, because if he's upset, we'd like to help him. He doesn't seem to do anything very bad to us. I mean, we coexist with Fred. We say good morning to him when we arrive in the visitor centre, hoping that we'll put Fred in a good mood for the rest of the day.
Quite often people sense a presence in the building, even though they don't see anything or hear anything. Do you sense a presence here at all?
Well, I think this is simply because of the stories we've had. We do. We sense Fred. We'll come in the mornings and a lot of our display material will be on the ground. And we can see no apparent reason for this except that Fred doesn't like it there. And we put it back. And sometimes we put it back so often and it falls down that we just don't put it back anymore. And Fred wins in our eyes.
There's another Fred, about 100 kilometres away from Sydney, at Campbelltown. Every November, the city holds one of the world's most extraordinary festivals to celebrate the ghost of an ex-convict murdered in the town 160 years ago. For 6 days, the town develops ghost fever, and thousands of people line the streets for a parade of decorated floats, pipers, brass bands, and ghosts in costume. It's all in honour of Australia's most famous and cherished phantom, the spirit of a ticket-of-leave convict called Fred Fisher, who once operated a small farm on the edge of town. The legend of...
Stop the parade. It is the same Fred. It's the same Fred. They're celebrating Fred. Fred's come a long way. It is Fred. This is what I'm saying. That's crazy. How cool is that? How about that? Good old Fred. He's back.
Fisher's ghost is part of Australia's folklore, but the story is founded on historical fact. Fred Fisher was an industrious man determined to rise above his convict past. He worked hard on his small property and enjoyed the friendship and respect of the townspeople. He was last seen alive one afternoon in 1826, mending fences in paddocks near a small creek. Court records show that while he was working, Fred was visited by a more prosperous farmer called George Worrell, who argued with him over the location of the boundary between their two properties. But the terrible fate of Fred Fisher wasn't discovered until months later. It's not the brutal murder.
Hold the phone a minute. Did I mistake something here? Is every year when they have this parade, do they reenact the murder of that guy hanging out at the fence? Surely to God not. Do they? Did you hear that? Aaron, is that what they said?
I don't think so.
I mean, that's brutal. I mean, I understand reenactment, but I'm just saying, let's hope not. Maybe I'm wrong. Okay. Oh, God.
Fred Fisher that the people of Campbelltown celebrate every year. It's his ghost. The story has come to symbolize the triumph of good over evil and the victory of a little Aussie battler over the bigger bloke. As far as the townspeople knew, Fred Fisher had simply vanished. And in the weeks that followed, George Worrell fabricated the story that Fisher had sold him his farm before fleeing to England to escape a forgery charge. Worrell began selling up Fisher's goods, and although the townsfolk were suspicious, nothing could be proved. He had disposed of Fisher's body by dragging it to a small creek and burying it in a shallow grave. About 3 months after Fisher's disappearance, a local resident, John Farley, came rushing white-faced into the local pub, claiming he had seen Fisher's ghost sitting on the handrail of a fence. He said the apparition had slowly turned and pointed towards the creek. And a short time later, Aboriginal trackers guided police to the body at the exact spot indicated by the ghost. Worrell was arrested, convicted, and hanged for the crime. The story became legend, and for the past century and a half, locals have claimed that Fisher's ghost can sometimes still be seen sitting on the fence, pointing accusingly to where he was dragged by his murderer. The historic Princess Theatre in Melbourne is the home of a third well-loved ghost called Fred. It's the apparition of a noted opera singer, Frederick Baker, who died in the theatre under the most bizarre circumstances.
Okay. I get it now. There's more than one Fred. There's more than one Fred. This is another Fred that was at the theater. Okay. So, well, I guess we've learned don't be named Fred in Australia. You might just get something bad happen to you, I guess.
Circumstances imaginable. On March the 3rd, 1888, Frederick was playing the demonic role of Mephistopheles in a production of Faust. In the final scene of the opera, Mephistopheles returns to Hades with Faust, and Fred, in crimson costume, descended to hell amid theatrical smoke and flames through the stage trapdoor. A platform operated by ropes and pulleys carried Fred below, but he suffered a heart attack on the way down and died without speaking another word. It seems Fred couldn't accept missing out on the final bow, because from the moment he died, strange events were recorded at the Princess Theatre. His ghost has become a theatrical legend. The phantom is known to generations of theatre folk as Federici, a glowing human shape whose appearance spells good luck for any forthcoming production. And Federici has appeared to scores of people over the past century.
As a matter of fact, it was right here. I was sitting where I am standing now, and my back was towards the house, and Malcolm Phillips, who was directing the play, unfortunately Malcolm's now dead, but he was looking out into the theatre, and he said, "There he is, the poor old bastard." And I said, "Who?" And he said, Fred, he's out there in the circle." So I really had to build myself up to it. It was not my favourite moment at that moment of time. And I turned around, and there he was, up there in the circle. And the theatre had gone cold. I became conscious of the smell like old lavender. You know that type of smell if you go into an elderly lady's home and you get open linen drawers and you get that strange lavender type smell. But what we saw was a shape of white light like that, with a diffused grey light around it. All I can say is that's what happened to me right here on this stage, and whatever it was up there.
We've just seen two non-threatening but very different ghosts. Federici at the Princess Theatre seems to linger on for no apparent purpose. Fisher's ghost suggests two possibilities. The first is that his spirit survived death and came back to give information about the murder. The second possibility is that his observer gained telepathic information from the murderer's mind and dramatized this up into a projected apparition. But our next ghost is quite different. In fact, it may not be a ghost at all. It's a kind of force which brings out the violence in people, and it exists in Clarkfield Hotel, which has the reputation of being the most haunted building in Australia.
I love this man. I love this man. First, I've got just a couple questions and we'll move on, unless everybody else has questions. First of all, love the accent. I absolutely love this accent, just the way and the little nuances that their phraseology. You know what I mean? Their slang and stuff. I love that. Second, how many old ladies' houses is this guy going in, opening their drawers that he knows that it smells like lavender? You know, did that get by you guys? I mean, he says, you know, when you go into an older lady's house and you open up their drawers, it smells like lavender. I want to know what he's been up to. But interesting that he could feel the cold and smell the lavender in that large spot. I mean, look at the size of that thing. And I know the acoustics for sound by the, you know, just the whole shape and material, the whole thing is built for that, but not to carry scent. You see what I mean? That's a lot of projecting. That's quite a distance. That's like, it's an arena. I mean, literally a theater. And he could smell the old lavender and feel the cold. The whole place went cold. Interesting. You know, you almost wonder. It makes me think, I know I'm so weird, but it makes me think of stuff like, do ghosts have something like a gas tank? Do you know what I mean? Like, you only got so much gas to go the distance you need to go. So, you know, how much gas does it take to, you know, bang the cabinet doors back and forth a little bit and, you know, open and close some silverware drawers, maybe throw a cup or two? You know, do you have to go back and get filled up, scare a few kids, maybe chase a dog or two? You get your energy back and then you come back and you can flip over a chair. Or do you see what I mean? Do they have is there a way that they have knowledge to where they don't want to use up their energy? It seems to be also that they can store it up and use it for wait and use it for something really big and then have to go back and get reduced back up again. Am I phrasing that question?
Yeah, like they have a battery.
Yeah. I know a gas tank is a weird way of thinking about it, but I was trying to find a way to describe it to where you've only got so much and you've got to ration that out, you know, accordingly to whatever goal you want to achieve. You see what I'm saying? So in the case of a car, a gas tank, you know, I've got a gallon of gas. Can I get to the bank and the, you know, the liquor store and the, you know, the Jiffy Mart and get back home on that gas? Does a ghost have to think like that? Or does it happen and then they go, hey, you know, I should have held that little bit back because, you know, I could have pushed this guy down the stairs, or I could have, you know. Do you see what I mean? It seems to be different for all of them, but similar. Just a little bit, just enough similar to make you nuts to try to figure this.
Yeah, because like, why does just the one flower pot jar fly across the kitchen and then nothing else? You know, the
Yeah.
the silverware drawer doesn't open up and all the knives, forks, and spoons get spilled out. Or
Right.
yeah,
Exactly. That's what I mean. Yeah. And also, you know, a step further. I mean, I don't know, chat. What do you think?
and then
I mean,
all the cabinet doors are opening and shutting at the same time, making a big racket.
right. I mean, you know how, all right, let's say it this way, you know, and then we'll get back to this because I don't want to get too far off, but this is a good point. It's a good, you know, a good point to make. And Catheta says a poltergeist can probably, and I want to say almost to remove a poltergeist out of that, because I've begun to think, I've always did think it was separate from just a regular, I want to say household ghost now. I want to make that a thing. Just your regular, everyday, just, you know, your regular household ghost, you know, just earthbound, just mind his own business, you know, opening a few doors, maybe some footsteps, you know, and then back on. And we don't even know, like, if they're just haunting us or they going across the street. I mean, because ghosts do that. It's not unheard of. Some ghosts just come and go as they damn well please and go off to the next, and just, you know, you're just a stop on the journey, kind of a rest stop, kind of on their highway to wherever they're going, you know. So is it it's not just because we know ghosts use energy. We know their energy and they use energy and they get energy from us putting off energy like fear and things like that. Depending on what they're going for, I think fear is the biggest thing, like that jolt of, you know, they get a little zzz from it. Let's just put it that way. Right. And if you look at the movie Ghost, what was his name? Sam? Was it Sam? I can't remember. I saw it a long time ago. But it was good points in there. Like I used in the in the intro from the other night. Him seeing the light and the other one getting taken down by those shadow people, I mean, there's so many good points in there. But with them, he was trying to learn just how to do certain things. It took so much to move the penny. It took so much to try to learn how to open the door. And he's got different ones telling him, just think it. And he's, think it without thinking about it or something like that. And he's trying to sort that and get it just right. Once they get past that point, and I imagine it's different for all of them at their own pace, yeah. Do they start to learn like, man, I better save that, in case I need it? Or, is that why they go off into dark places and just so they're not using it like we would go just to get away? Same type of thing. Maybe they go off in the dark cellar, the dark closet, the dark whatever, just so they can, regenerize or just, cope or whatever. And then come out and do a couple of spurts of whatever, like, wah! And then back in for another round because it doesn't know what it's doing either. But is there so much? Is that why they have to go off and stop and regroup and get more energy? And do they know it? And how long does it take them to learn that? It's incredible questions. I mean, do you sit in shows like this? See, the funny honey's kicking in. Do you sit in shows like this and say, man, I want to learn stuff because I don't want that to be me. I don't want that to be somebody I love. I don't want somebody I love to go off and take the wrong turn on the road out and wind up, living for the next 150 years in somebody's closet, or, in the cellar or something, or in an attic, or, at a bar playing, sad songs on the jukebox. I mean, we're here to learn. And I'm wondering what in the heck, because like you asked, it made me think about different places on the battlefield. There's definitely different feelings from the ghosts. In certain places, you're going to get certain things. And it makes perfect sense, and how you talk to them and how you sort it. You know what I mean? There's different energies that are coming at you. It's quite amazing. And I wonder what how they're using their energy. Some of them are just caught in this loop like a hamster wheel and they just keep repeating it, while others stay with them and try to get them over to where their understanding is. What do you think about all that, Aaron? Thank you, Ted. Look at you, you sweetheart. You sweetie. I love you, baby. Thank you so much. Thank you kindly. Thank you to all. And for last night's too, we appreciate it so much. Go ahead, Aaron.
Oh, my opinion on it, if it was something traumatic, I think it's almost like there's unsettled business. And so that's why that stuff keeps hanging around. It lingers around because it's like there's no closure.
I'm here. I know what you mean. And again, darn if it isn't true, it's different for each one, just like it would be for each of us. And the main question, I guess, is what I'm saying is we're all trying to figure this out for different reasons. And, it's probably not just one reason. It might have started for one reason, but it's branched out in multiple different reasons and multiple different things and that interest you. We've all got are groups of, things in this that are kind of our thing. Like some people are real Bigfoot, or lore and the little people and, leprechauns and things. And some people are, more horror and slasher stuff and they just want to be scared. And some people dig into like legends of vampires and it's just UFOs. Everybody's got something, but again, it's all connected, right? And it's like the ghost, the same thing. If it's a household ghost, if it's a regular earthbound spirit, human, the essence of a human being that for whatever reason stayed or stuck or is caught, each one of those is extremely individual, but there's got to be some core rules. You see what I mean? It's got to be. So we know that if you can speak to a ghost, communicate with the ghost, and not just throw it out, but if you can, reach out to it and say, hey, get them to understand, connect back into, sort through whatever anxiety they got going on, and then get back to that love connection, someone they miss, somebody, something that connects them back, start back into that light, away from that anxiety and darkness and foreboding. Right away, it seems like their soul remembers the light. It's like it's an instantaneous thing. It's like, oh, there you are. It's every time. So there's core rules, but it's all of the gray between the black and the white that is such a mystery. And why ghosts would choose to just keep repeating, going up and down the stairs. All right, well, is it residual, or is it a loop? Is it a time loop? Is it a time warp? Is it a parallel universe and it's me going up and down the stairs from Tuesday? Is it, what the hell is it? Is it just a ghost sitting in the chair eating ghostly bonbons and, reading Time magazine from 1930 or something and screwing with me and throwing sound like something is coming down the stairs, and it's just feeding off my anxiety and my fear, and it's really nothing coming down the stairs, but a ghost is doing it. There's so many different, and then you bring in the really colorful stuff like the Demon of Brownsville Road, and you've really got yourself a party, right? I didn't mean to take us off on that tangent, but every time I see one of these things, I sort it out and I see the similarities and I see it connecting to so many other stories and so many other witness statements, and from their body language and their emotion and how they choose to word their experience and describe these things. And, 60 years of this, and I'm still sitting here going, you know what I mean? But it's amazing. Me too, Aunt Edna.
The historic Bluestone pub at Clarkfield, 40 kilometres north of Melbourne, has been haunted for as long as locals can remember. The hotel was built in 1856, and the famous Cobb & Co. coach company used it as a staging post to the goldfields. There's a legend that a young girl was murdered in the building and thrown down a well near the stables. And apart from seeing ghosts, those who live at the hotel seem to suffer from unexplained fits of violence. The upper story walls are peppered with shotgun pellets, and fists have been smashed through doors by owners and staff, who were later driven out in fear. The past 3 generations of hotel owners all insist that Clarkfield Hotel is inhabited by some unexplained force. One example is former licensee Frank Nelson, who scoffed at the idea of ghosts when he took over the hotel in March 1984.
So how long were you in the hotel before anything happened?
3 days. 3 days we were there. And,
what happened?
well, and, you know, trying to meet a few customers. Only the wife and I there, you know, no staff on, and we'd worked, you know, 3 to 1 o'clock in the morning, and went upstairs and hopped into bed. And I suppose it was about 2 o'clock. I heard the, you know, bottles rattling and glasses being moved, and I thought, oh well, some of the locals, you know, you've just taken the hotel over, and a lot of country pubs, the locals walk in and out when they feel like it. And so I went to go down to investigate, and got about halfway down the stairs and heard a bit more noise, and I thought, sounds like more than one. I think I better grab something. I felt a real cold draft of wind, like, you know, walking into an air conditioner. It just sort of blew me back a bit. Something like someone picked me up and tried to throw me over the banister. Had both hands on the banister, and it just seemed to disappear. Didn't feel any pain, but when I went to get up, my foot was sort of twisted back around. When I went to the hospital, they said it was impossible for me just to fall downstairs, that I would have had to fall from a height, because it was shattered in 3 places, and I had to have 3 steel pins inserted.
How long were you in crutches?
Some crutches for 7 months.
Are you absolutely convinced that some supernatural force was the cause for that?
Well, to start off with, I didn't think it was. And, yeah, I didn't want to go to the hospital and say the ghost or something sort of throwing me down the stairs. It was the things that happened to me later on that convinced me that there was something there. The thing that frightened me the most, I used to have my name called out at night, and this had happened 2 or 3 times a week. And I'd get out of bed and think, you know, someone wants to buy some beer after hours or something like that, you know. There'd just be no one there. And then one particular night, I was in bed in the room on my own, and the door opened, and the presence of something was there, and the next thing, I had my leg in plaster, and a hand came on my leg and started twisting it, and I grabbed hold of the crutches that were beside.
You go on ahead, AJK. You do what you need to do, Aaron, okay? Thank you so much for being on. We love you, man. Thanks for being on.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Thanks.
Absolutely. And go over there and get his link up here, mods, if you wouldn't mind. And get over there and sub with the Radio Vault if you hadn't. Great history stuff, great quizzes, trivia, and stuff like that. Love it. He does a lot of good work, a lot of good production. Thanks for being here tonight, babe. We appreciate it.
The bed, and I was, you know, get away, and
was the room in darkness?
It was in darkness. Anyway, I got up and I put the light on, and the door had shut again, so I put the deadlock on it, hopped back in the bed, and the door opened, and that was it. I just lay there going hot and cold.
The current cook is Graham Fairley. 3 of his predecessors were affected by ghosts. 2 became violent and had to be taken away by police. The other eventually fled the building in terror. Graham doesn't think he'll last much longer either.
I tell you, if you look out here now, you'll see it's a nice country style living, country scene. It looks really nice at this stage, at this time of the day. But at night time, if you come up here, you just happen to be looking out here, I don't know what it is. It's maybe that well, there's a well down there, there's that tree there, but you get a very cold feeling, just comes really chilling, blood chilling, and it comes all over your body, and you just can't stand it any longer. You just say, I can't explain why it is.
Do you look through that window anymore?
Not after the first 3 times, no. No more.
Have you ever seen anything as you look out there?
Yes. Actually, one night the second night I was here, I was looking out and I was looking at that tree, and it's quite a nice tree, but all of a sudden there was this face of a man, a person, was like peering at me out of the tree. I looked and I thought, oh, it must be the light or some, I don't know what, I can't explain it. So I looked again and had a close look, and no matter which way the tree was blowing, that face stood still. All the branches were blowing, and but that face stood stock still, staring at me.
What effect did that have on you?
No.
Well, that's it. I just closed it. That's why I'm leaving. to be honest, you know.
That's why
I mean,
I'm
that's
leaving.
just incredible. I have experienced a mist early in the morning in the kitchen. You walk down, there's no mist anywhere. You go into the kitchen, it's just full of mist, like a fog. Since I've been here 3 times, I've seen all the animals just go berserk at night. The whole lot of them, from the rabbits to the dogs, the donkeys, the goats,
Get out of there, man.
the ducks, they'll just all go berserk. Crazy. Be running around
That's it,
paddock
right,
out
Aunt
there.
Edna? That's it.
Just unbelievable. And one night I got the manager, I said, Steve, we better go down and check this out. Thinking it might have been a fox or something like that. We went down there was nothing there. And they were still going all berserk, just all running around in circles. Incredible.
See? The animal, there you go. When the animals tell you, listen to them. And the sheep do.
There is some force there. Whatever it is, I couldn't explain it, you know. It's something that, you know, really gets to you after a while. You're starting to look over your shoulder when you walk upstairs at night.
I hope you're in good spirits after your visit to Clarkfield Hotel. Unfortunately, that was another case in which people got hurt. In haunts like that, 2 factors seem to be involved. The first is in the building, and in only 13% of cases does exorcism clear that. In another 13%, it makes things worse. The second factor is the personality of the observers, and personality is very difficult to change. So perhaps the most practical thing that you can do is to move out of the haunted building. But our next ghost is much more attractive. In fact, she's my favorite in this series, and I'm sure you'll like her too. She's a sexy young lady in a red bikini who haunts a modern house in Adelaide. As the story develops, ask yourself what meaning she could have for the man who is the one person at a crowded party who could see her. She's a ghost whose symbolic qualities exceed even her considerable ghostly attractions.
Gotta love him, right?
Mrs. Di Close says she had just moved into her brick veneer home in Elizabeth Downs in Adelaide when one of the most amazing ghosts on record manifested itself in the hallway, then disappeared, leaving a pool of yellowish liquid behind.
She was small, about 5'2", very attractive, shoulder-length brown hair, always wore a bikini.
How did she behave?
Aggressively to begin with, very much so. I woke up one night and I felt that I was being strangled. I could feel this pressure around my throat. There would be, things would get broken in the house. The whole house just seemed one of aggression, depression. It was just an awful feeling.
Di's friends thought she'd gone mad at first. But then one by one, visitors to the house also began to see the ghost, and it made almost daily appearances. It was an experience which gave vehicle welder Brian Hall the shock of his life.
Oh, there was a party going on, and my parents were invited, and I was on my own single, so they said, why not come along?
Did you know Di Close very well?
This was a good
no,
one.
I
Listen,
didn't. My
listen
parents did,
good.
but I didn't.
Did you know about the story of the ghost in the red bikini?
No, I'd heard stories of things happening in the house, but not actually a ghost. No.
What happened when you went there?
Well, I was sitting with my parents and their friends having a drink, and there was a young lady sitting across from me, but on an angle round in the other part of the room, and she was sort of looking at me, giving me the, you know, the nod, you're on your own, I'm on my own.
Lots of love to you, Jack. Everybody just send a little energy that way. Jack, take this and put it over there. Blow it in. Send that. Send that, Jack, okay?
A couple of minutes later, I saw her come walking through from a different angle in a bikini and go out the back door to the swimming pool. And I thought, that's strange, you know, nobody else in the pool. It's not midsummer. So I got up and walked across to the window, and there she was in the pool. So I went out. I didn't actually speak to her. She was just sort of floating around in the pool. And I went back inside to get a drink. And when I looked, the woman was still sitting in the same seat. And I thought, that's strange. So I asked the people that was with me, has she got a sister, or is there somebody here that looks like her? And they said, no, what's the problem? I said, well, I've just seen her in the swimming pool out the back. And they said, oh, rubbish. There she is, still sitting there. So with that, I went back and looked out the window, and there she was, still in the pool. So I went out. And as I went out the door, she came to the side of the pool and put her arm out to me, as if to say, you know, take my hand, sort of thing. And I did. As I put my hand into her hand, that was it. She just vanished and left me standing there freezing sort of cold, and she was gone.
Did you feel anything as you put your hand
Nothing.
through?
Nothing.
Did you tell people about it afterwards?
Well, there was another friend came out, and he was standing behind me, and when I turned round, he just looked at me and said, you've seen something, and I was standing sort of like this, and he grabbed hold of my hand and said, it's frozen. You've seen something, come inside, I'll get you another drink. And that's what we did do, and then the story came out that supposedly there was a ghost of some young girl in that house.
What effect did this have on you in the weeks that followed?
Very much like I am now, I suppose. I get very nervous talking about it, and it gives me an horrible itch, you know, a real uncomfortable feeling.
Scientists talk about the...
That dude is 100% telling the truth. He saw what he saw. You know what I'm saying? He saw what he saw. That's true. I just love these people, don't you?
Possibility of collective...
We love you, Jack. We're sending that out to you. No joke. Put Joan in your prayers. And anybody that's out there hurting a pet, you know, so much stuff going on out there. But just, again, just got to love each other through it. That's all we can do. We got to love each other through it. I mean, everybody's going through something awful, and it's horrible. I hate to see it. But, you know, love and light, and just surround everybody with light as much as you can. I got a cup or two I can spare. You know, there's no way, there's no other way through it.
Hallucinations, of telepathic projections. I know, of course, a lot of people talk about ghosts. Are you convinced that this actually was a ghost?
Yes, because I know what they say about this collective hallucinations. It couldn't possibly have been, because there were so many different days, different times, different people. You didn't have to have a crowd. There could be just one or two people there. And it'd be all odd times, so it was just too obvious to try and explain it away. There was a ghost there.
I think she'd get all pruny by now. Just saying.
Adelaide's bikini ghost is just one example of the ancient belief that spirits can inhabit water. To find another, We must travel more than 2,000 kilometers to where the hulk of a 7,300-ton freighter, the Alkimos, sits abandoned off the western Australian coast. The old steamer is trapped on rocks and sand.
Do y'all remember this one? About a year ago, we did an extraordinary with Warwick Moss, the guy that started this, and they told this story about the cursed ship, the Alchemist, and they had the diver that told his story. Everybody that goes on that ship, some kind of it hangs out with it. There's some kind of curse. Something happens. It's a good little story. After this one, we'll cut off, and I'm trying to think next weekend what we can do. So maybe we can just finish up Australia. I got to do something on the road because I won't, you know what I'm saying? So maybe we can finish it up then because I don't want to keep everybody too late. This will take us to about 10:30. So let's finish the Alchemist, and then we'll do a nice little outro video that's going to leave you nice and light. It's one of my favorites, and we'll start the rest of this week and kick it and just keep sending light out there, guys. Okay.
Just offshore, with the wind singing eerily in her rigging and waves lapping at gaping rents in her side. When the tide is high, she shifts restlessly, as if yearning to head out to sea, and local crave fishermen always give her a wide berth. With the superstition common to all seagoing folk, they believe the Alchemist is cursed. Many of them testify to having seen a dark figure in oilskins, a ghost they call Henry, stalking the deck at night. No one goes on the wreck now, and even an hour aboard alone is the stuff nightmares are made of. The Alchemist seems to scream as its rusted metal structure is slowly torn apart by the sea. Many people believe the Alchemist was a cursed ship even before the ghost appeared. The old wreck has an almost incredible history of ill fortune. She was launched in America in 1943, but no company kept her long before selling her off, and her name was changed several times, which is an old seafaring recipe for bad. Repairs after constant collisions, breakdowns and groundings had given her an extra 153 millimeters in length by the time she reached Australia, and the Alchemist still seemed bent on her own destruction. She ran aground 250 kilometers north of Perth and later caught fire in the dock. She was ordered to Hong Kong for repairs, but the tow rope snapped and she was driven onto a reef. A second tug which tried to tow her off also caught fire. Then the Alchemist snapped her anchor chain and was permanently grounded. Since then she has caught fire 6 times, and every attempt to salvage her has met with accident, injury, or death. She has been abandoned for the past decade, and those who do venture aboard never forget the experience. One such witness is Ray Krakauer, an Anzac veteran who's now a local justice of the peace.
I was asked to do a bit of looking after it and do a bit of salvage. I spent weeks on it, days on it. I heard talking many times. You hear this guttural talking. Now the wireless cabin was sealed up with a lock on the door. I heard the Morse key sending out a message. You're saying things go on, and here's a locked room with no one in the room, and the Morse key, a hand Morse key, working itself with no power. While working in the number 3 hatch, removing some degaussing apparatus, out of the darkness, an apparition appeared, almost like a fluorescent light. It was the shape of a person. picked up a piece of 3x2 and I was going for it. And then the junk that was lying around was in my way, and I thought, well, there's going to be an accident one way or other. So I just turned and went up the ladder. If I say a thing happened, it happened. I'm not going to tell a man who saw somebody walking with their head under their arm in the Tower of London, say he didn't see it. He said he saw it. Okay, he saw it. Now, I know what I saw. I know what I experienced. Now, if I say it, that happened. That's what happened.
One of Western Australia's top skin divers and salvage operators, Jack Sue, has written a book about the shipwreck and firmly believes he too has been touched by the alchemist curse. Jack swears that while on board, he heard moaning coming from an empty bunk, and his wife was tragically killed in a car accident during the same period.
And up to my own personal experience and the loss of my former wife, nobody would ever convince me otherwise than that there is something wrong with that ship.
Do you blame the ship for the death of your wife in any way at all?
Yes, I do. Almost everybody that's been on that ship for any length of time spent or been involved with the ship in business matters, nearly all have had some ill fortune, illness, or tragedy.
People who board the Alchemist seem to step
this
back
guy
into the
too.
past.
Absolutely.
In some curious way, she seems to be busy with unfinished business. There are cooking smells coming from her galley, Morse from her radio room, men walking about on her deck, and there's Henry in his yellow oilskins riding out some invisible storm. What a pity that there was nobody there who could understand Morse. Now we'll never know what the content of that message was or the date of the transmission. Alchemist poses us with a problem of deciding when ordinary bad luck turns into something more sinister. To the people trying to dismantle her, Alchemist seems to be fighting back stubbornly, injuring and harming those people that are trying to destroy her. But perhaps we better leave her to become a legend similar to the Flying Dutchman, and instead move from shipwrecks to ship relics housed in a building with a very interesting history.
It's hard to imagine a building with a more brutal and tragic past than Fremantle Museum. It was built in the 1860s to house convict men and women who had gone insane after suffering the cruelties of the British penal system. It was called Fremantle Lunatic Asylum, and before the installation of padded cells, prisoners were chained and doused with cold water if they became uncontrollable. The building has had a haunted reputation for as long as people can remember, and according to staff in the old limestone museum, no less than 4 ghosts now roam its rambling corridors. Visitors to the museum have also had strange experiences. One witness is producer and director Jerry Atkinson, who wrote a play about a ghost and staged it in the museum quadrangle
We'll
at
finish
night.
this one and then we'll go.
The leading lady, a girl called Judy, was in period costume. And at intermission, he followed her into the building to discuss the next scene.
And I noticed her going up the steps to the dressing room, because the dressing room was upstairs. And I followed her, calling out, "Judy, I'd like to talk to you about a change in one of the moves." But I didn't get an answer. I noticed her just walking up the steps. There she was in this old gown. And I kept on calling and she didn't answer. And then she went into the dressing room. I saw her go into the dressing room. The door closed. Well, first of all, that was against the rules, because I had a rule in that particular production. That door was not to be shut because we had children in the cast. And then I thought perhaps she was a little bit upset, as happens in plays. So I knocked on the door and found it was locked and called out. No answer. I was getting a bit annoyed about this, really. And then all of a sudden, I heard a voice. I turned, and there was the real Judy behind me, coming up the stairs after I'd been up to knock on the door. Well, we opened the door, and when we went in, there wasn't a soul there. And
was there any other way out?
No, there were only windows, and there's a sheer drop. It's the first story.
Did you check the room to see if anyone was hiding there?
Yes, we did. We looked right round. We couldn't find a soul.
Over the years, several staff members have testified to seeing the ghost of a woman which carries a lamp and moans softly as it wanders the museum galleries at night. The ghost seems to be endlessly searching for something, and they believe the apparition is that of a convict woman who went mad with grief after her young daughter was abducted more than a century ago. Records show the woman eventually committed suicide by jumping from the first-floor window of what is now the Investigator Gallery. The ghost seems to react most strongly when young schoolgirls visit the old asylum. Mrs. Emily Johansson, a former museum attendant, witnessed one such incident.
At a building with that type of cruelty and sadness, there must be some waves left behind, and that's what I always did feel. When anything had happened, it was always either this agitation or aggression. 3 young teenagers came down from John Curtin High School. All of a sudden, 2 locked this other one in the cell.
Zoe, stop it! It's not examining anymore. Let me
shrugged me off and shot off like a scared rabbit. But it was the feeling at that time of, I'd say agitation is the term that comes to mind.
Is it possible that it was simply the wind?
No, oh no, Recherche Gallery, well, you know, it's quite sheltered really. There's no way, not even a gale would come in there.
Did you notice that Fremantle Museum had the apparition of a living person, the leading lady at the play? We now know that such apparitions occur when people have out-of-the-body experiences, so that if we could somehow find a way of inducing those out-of-the-body experiences, we could perhaps produce apparitions to order. One way is to put the person in a sensory isolation tank.
Oh, heck no. Okay, let's save that one for the next one, because there's a good bit left of this one, and I've got some more Australia, so we might as well finish it. Maybe that'll give me something that I can be with you guys next Sunday. So I know I can't do a close space. Sometimes if I really prepare myself, you know, I guess I could, but you know, these spelunkers that go in these caves and the real tight things, even when I was writing in Cabin 22 and Jacob was going into that cave and chasing that rabbit and stuff like that, it was hard to even write that. That's how, you know, it was like the shark thing. So yep, I draw the line there. D-Rock, man, I'll tell you what, you and Glenn and Jack and Ted, you guys are always on my little, you know, you catch my things when they come through. It's true. Everybody's got something. Sharks, grasshoppers, you know, I will go into a dark cellar when, you know, Marines are coming out, and go down there and deal with the stuff. But closed spaces and I'm not fond of canned green beans or liver, but I'm not afraid of it. I just don't care for it. So, but anyway, God bless everybody that needs extra light tonight. God bless Aaron, AJK, AK, the Radio Vault. Seriously, get over there if you have not subbed to his channel. Do so. Support everybody that you can, even if it's just sharing out their stuff, even if it's just, yuck, Ted, right? Ooh. I think my mom used to cook liver and onions just to get me out of the house on a Saturday. You know what I mean? Oh, so gross. Just thinking about it. But get over there and sub to his channel, and Also, I put up a little banner, in jest. Seriously, our love goes out to Steve and Nicole. He's wow. I mean, he's moved cross country, folk. You know, he's got his life in boxes, and it's Molder, and changing and starting a new journey, a new and we bless him. We bless every bit of it, and wish him all the best. And I'm stuttering here because I don't want to say anything I shouldn't say. I mean, it's a sometimes I have to sort whether it's like, is that anything? Is that anything? But because you don't want to give people's private stuff out, and if I've heard Steve speak on it, on his channel, then I don't feel so bad about mentioning it, but our love to him, and to Nicole, and to Mulder too. Blessing, safe trip. Take it easy. If you get tired, pull over. If you get hungry, eat something, and know that we love you. And we love you both, the Stockton soon to be. That's right, D Rock. That's so cool. And it's so cool when people can come together over, you know, interests, and like-minded people can find each other. And as bad as the inner tubes are, and you know social media, and people are always going to use something for good and for evil, you know what I mean. But one of the good things is people have found each other. you know they've been creative. They found other people that are creative and support them, and artists and things like that. We found ways to do that here with music, and the intros and the outros and all that stuff. That's all for the artists. That's all for the composers. Tonight, Asher Valero, and we've got some Wayne Jones in there, and some Kevin MacLeod. Um, just however you express it, however you enjoy it, take in those positive things, take in that light, notice other people's light, you know, um, and embrace them for that. Reach out and tell them. you know yes, it's important. Leave a review, leave a comment, leave a share, and go, man, I really believe in this artist. Look at this work. you know Use the social media as good as for as much good as possible. And that's one of the things that's come out of that is people have found each other. People have found chats that they're comfortable in, that they come in and they touch base, and they get a little bit rejuvenated, and they go on about, they take maybe a little something that they talked about, and maybe interested in a book or an author or a movie, or something else, and that adds light to their week, and come back and said, hey, I watched that movie. So again, I like to do that too. I like to share it with people. I will say it again, go to YouTube. If you don't want to spend any money, if you're out of the country, find a way to watch it if you can. But the movies that I'm telling you are worth, a little bit. I wouldn't go out and buy the DVD or whatever. They're worth it though. The Ravine, Nefarious, both of those show so much about exactly at the level of your consciousness and what you can understand and what you're going to take in, and the depths of what you guys will get from those two movies. And you will leave those two movies with the strength to sort through whatever's nearest to you, whatever you're dealing with, on whatever level, because it takes you so deep in what's truly important and truly, truly counts, and helps you walk your journey with a little extra kick in your step. You know what I mean? Because if you can take both of those movies in, and you can see what's happened to humanity with Nefarious, and you see how those things look on a daily, every day, to human beings in the ravine, what happens to families and people, and little yeses along the way in the wrong direction, and how people can be at a crossroad and once they're down that road, they start, oh man, it's on then, you know, and what happens, and then what happens to the people around him, and what happens to us when it's our time to leave this vessel. It's incredible, both of those movies. So watch them if you can. Get some good out of this. This is good. This chat is wonderful. Seeing our friends getting married and celebrating their love and putting more love out into the earth. Seeing you guys get something, a laugh, a smile from looking at simple gifts, those little, flashes or moments in time, like I called it in the intro. Moments in time, flashes. And you can't help by looking at those old movie stars and those old moments at James Dean or Robert Mitchum or John Wayne, young to old, Greta Garbo, Frank Sinatra, Judy Garland, Lawrence Fishburne, for Pete's sake. Where my chicken at? King of New York. Lawrence Fishburne, man. What was it? Bumpy something. Furious Styles was the best name of a character anybody will ever have. Furious Styles. He went from Larry Fishburne to Lawrence Fishburne. I believe he started his career in Apocalypse Now. Was it Apocalypse Now or Platoon? One of the two. Around that time. Somebody will tell me in the chat. But this is the thing. This is good. Light is wonderful. Sharing that light is even better. Knowing where to go when you need a little help with your light, priceless. I'm glad you guys came here tonight. Go out with a little light tonight, guys. And thank you for being here for Haunted Australia. We're going to continue it. I'm not sure what the what the schedule is going to be for next weekend, but I'll let you know. It'll be in the community, or you'll see me here. It'll pop up, and I hope you'll be here. And I love you, each and every one of you. And I took a lot so far from these conversations watching this, and I hope you did too. So here's a little, get you some of this. Take this with you. Take this on the road with you, your journey for the rest of the week. So I got to tell you, this is one of my favorites. Good night, everybody. I love you. Yeah, baby. Hear that? Woo! That's just nasty. Yeah. There we go. DJ Williams. Woo! Memories and photographs, moments in time. American Pop, if you haven't seen it, watch that one too. That one's just for your soul. That's American Pop as well. So good. Good night, everybody.